In this video, I'm going to do a very brief review of two brand new Athearn Genesis GP38-2 Phase 1 units. I got a Gulf Mobile in Ohio, road number 746, and I got an Illinois Central Operation Lifesaver unit, number 9612. So I went ahead and skipped the unboxing. Both of these are very typical Athearn Genesis boxing, the outer blister, the foam packaging. So just to sort of save everybody's time here, a couple things I just wanted to highlight real quick. I'm actually probably more particularly excited about the Gulf Mobile in Ohio paint scheme because this actually goes more with the theme, the era of my layout. The Illinois Central, the black, some people call it the Death Star theme because of the nose logo. This is actually a little bit later than what I'm planning on modeling, but I had an opportunity to get it fairly inexpensive, so I went ahead and picked it up because it's more representative of the Illinois Central after it's basically spun. The Illinois Central Industries spun the Illinois Central Gulf Railroad off in late 89, early 1990, and then it reverted back to Illinois Central. They repainted all of their locomotives to this black scheme, so it's not really representative of what I'm planning on modeling. But anytime you can get a good locomotive for cheap, you jump at it. So again, I'm very excited about this particular unit because after the Illinois Central back in the 1970s acquired the Gulf Mobile in Ohio, the railroad became Illinois Central Gulf, but at that time they were fairly strapped for money, so they didn't do a lot of repainting of locomotives, so it was very commonplace to see one of these paint schemes in a consist of the Illinois Central, the orange and white units. So again, I'm very happy because I'll be able to replicate that on my layout. So one of the spotting features on the GP38-2s, which is actually really neat what they ended up doing right here, and I'll zoom in on it in just a second. There's actually a window in one of the side doors for the engineer or the railroad crew to check the coolant levels. So Athearn did a great job of modeling this. Again, here's just a little bit closer view of the inspection window and some of the lettering, some of the wording on the various door panels. I did do some research on the prototype 746, and what I was able to find out after it was acquired by the Illinois Central, this unit actually was in operation for several years, and after the merger, or after the split off of Illinois Central Gulf and it reverted back to the black GP38-2 like I showed you just a few minutes ago, this particular unit was repainted in black, and the best that I can tell, there's no exact dates that I was able to find, but it was sometime in the early 1990s, and there was a lot of road numbers from 740 to 754 of the GM&O, and they became Illinois Central, the black schemes, 9560 to 9574. So this particular unit, I couldn't find the exact road number that it was repainted, but it did become an all-black GP38-2 for Illinois Central in the 1990s. So just a couple of quick differences between these two particular units. Obviously the Illinois Central is more of a late model locomotive, so you can see it actually has the ditch lights. I'll take it to my test track here and fire it up here in just a second. It has the nose-mounted hood. You can see there's differences in the horns. The Gulf Mobile in Ohio model has the roof-mounted light, but really essentially most of the rest of the locomotive is the same, couple different things that you'll notice here as I turn them sideways a little bit. Illinois Central unit has 4 stacks and it has the bell mounted on the long hood. Gulf Mobile in Ohio only has 2 stacks, and if you can barely tell, but the bell is actually frame mounted. There are differences in the fuel tank size, so you can see that the Gulf Mobile in Ohio actually has a larger fuel cell on it. So with that, there's other videos out on YouTube. The GP38-2 from Athearn is not a new release. These road numbers and paint schemes are a new release. They just came out. But this particular model has been out for some time, and there's some great additional in-depth reviews out on YouTube. So I'm just going to take these over to the layout, run through the startup sequences, some of the functions. One thing that these do have, they have the Tsunami 2 decoders, and it allows to do things like go to straight to a notch 8 on your throttle and things like that. So I'll run through a few of those and take them over to the layout. Okay, I have the Gulfmobile and Ohio unit sitting on my test track, and first thing I'm going to do is I will run through the startup sequence by applying track power to the layout. Run through just real quick some of the basic functions. F0 is the headlight. F1's the bell. 2 is the horn. 3 is the short horn. I'll show F4 here in a minute. It's part of the Tsunami 2 feature. It's straight to idle, but it has the locomotive has to be running first, or if the locomotive has dynamic brakes. This particular unit is not equipped with dynamic brakes. It'll go straight to idle. So F7 is the dimmer. See the headlights dim there a little bit. F8 mutes it. One of the things about the Athearn models is they come out of the box extremely loud. So 8 mutes. One of the things I do like, 9 will give you a half volume, so function 9. So it's a little bit more manageable, the noise levels. F10 is a straight to 8. So this is going to take the locomotive to notch 8. So I'll hit that. So what it does is it brings the RPMs up, and the locomotive hasn't moved an inch because I haven't actually applied any throttle to it yet. So now I'm going to go ahead and just give it a couple clicks on the throttle. And there we go. So while it's in the straight to 8 mode, as your locomotive's moving, when you hit F10 again, it takes the straight to 8 off, and then it'll bring the locomotive to the RPMs that you actually have your throttle set at. So right now I have it at a throttle level of 2, so it brought it down to notch 2 in terms of the RPM. So really cool feature on these Tsunami decoders. So here's the straight to idle, so I'm going to hit F4. And when you do that, the locomotive maintains its pace, but it brings the RPMs down to idle, which is actually really cool. So you could simulate pulling an empty train or going downhill. Now, if it was a dynamic brake model, the dynamic brake fans would be kicking in right now. So I swapped out the Gulfmobile and Ohio unit with the Illinois Central unit. I'm going to go through the startup sequence again, run through a few of the additional decoder features, show you the ditch lights on this, and we'll be done. So here's the startup sequence. It'll sound identical to the previous unit. So I swapped out the Gulfmobile and Ohio unit with the Illinois Central unit just to show you a couple of the additional function features. One of the things, this one has ditch lights, the other unit does not. So for the ditch lights, that should be F5, and you can see those there. Run through just a couple of the other function features that I didn't show you on the first unit. They will be the same though. We went through the first 10 essentially. F11 is a brake set release. This decoder did not come programmed from the factory with it, and there are instructions on here for how to enable that. F13 is going to be your coupler release, so hit that. F14 is half speed and maximum overdrive. I'm not going to do that because it's going to, the locomotive has to be running for that. F15 is going to be the hand ratchet, hand brake. Can barely hear it. It's audible. I'm not sure if it'll pick up on the video. You can hear it. F16 is HEP mode. That winds the engine way up. I'm not going to do that right now. Somewhat similar to the straight to 8. F17 is going to be a fuel loading sequence. And again, you have to listen very careful for the cap to be taken off. F18 is general service. Again, you have to listen carefully. You can hear some tools clanking. F19 is not used. F20 is a steam generator. 21 and 22 are not used. 23 should be an all-aboard sound if this was a passenger unit. Hear it. I could hear it. I'm not sure if it picked up on the video. F24 and F25 were not used. F26 is an engine notch up. F27 is engine notch down. So you can notch it up or notch it down. F28's not used. There's the emergency stop. You hit the emergency stop on your hand throttle. If there's a Mars light, it'll kick that into effect. So these are great units. Can't go wrong. Athearn Genesis, the Tsunami 2 decoders. Again, I am super thrilled to be able to get the red Gulfmobile in Ohio because it's really going to go with what I'm planning on doing on my layout. So until next time, thanks guys for watching.